My crush and my best friend teamed up to make my life a living hell for months, so I gave them a taste of their own medicine, literally. Now, 5 years later, I walk into a wedding looking amazing, and they're both awkwardly avoiding my dessert table like I'm the one who did something wrong. My crush and my closest friend left me with no choice. I bear no blame for what transpired with them during 10th grade. I genuinely believed my luck was finally changing when Garrett, my crush, stood in the center of the cafeteria, holding a red velvet cupcake, and invited me to homecoming. I was absolutely ecstatic. Yet, the instant I accepted his invitation, he presented Olivia, my best friend since 3rd grade, with a small floral bouquet, explaining he simply didn't want her to feel excluded. I tried to convince myself he was merely being considerate, but the way their gazes lingered for a moment too long caused a strange knot in my chest. Over the subsequent days, Olivia and I went shopping for dresses together. She helped style my hair the afternoon of homecoming, assuring me I looked flawless. Still, her eyes seemed to hold more pity than genuine admiration. At the park, for photos, Garrett offered me a strained smile before casually draping his arm around Olivia, suggesting she pose with him just for fun. He then kept her by his side for every subsequent picture, leaving me standing off to the side like some uncompensated photographer. He twirled her around as if they were auditioning for a romantic film, repeatedly remarking on her natural grace. In the car, on the way to the dance, they were seated intimately in the back, while I drove alone in silence. I only glanced back once, catching sight of their intertwined fingers and Olivia resting her head on his shoulder, as if that were her rightful place. When Garrett noticed me looking in the rearview mirror, he sharply told me to focus on the road, treating me like their personal driver. Upon our arrival, they entered the gymnasium without waiting for me, sharing an inside joke. I trailed behind, already feeling overwhelmed. Inside the dance, I stood near the wall, clutching a flimsy plastic cup as they danced together, completely disregarding my presence, as if I had never been invited. Each time I attempted to approach, they drifted further away, until the music softened, and I finally discovered them kissing behind the bleachers. In that precise moment, something within me transformed into an absolute revulsion, almost sacred in its intensity. For several weeks, I remained silent, smiling through everything and pretending I was perfectly content being their unwanted third wheel. However, when Valentine's Day arrived and our culinary instructor announced we would be preparing chocolates as class gifts, it felt as though destiny had placed a blade in my hand and indicated where to strike. I spent days in my home kitchen under the guise of experimenting with recipes, but each batch I crafted for Garrett and Olivia was a meticulously planned weapon. I melted dark chocolate, infusing it with enough overproof rum to coat the roof of their mouths. I ground laxatives into a fine powder, precisely measuring the dose that would cause an explosive reaction in their stomachs approximately 20 minutes after consumption. I even incorporated a hint of ghost peppers into the filling. I tempered the chocolate to a lustrous finish and carefully placed these seemingly handcrafted hearts into golden wrappers. At the conclusion of our culinary class, we proceeded to our algebra class for an examination. I distributed the confections casually, mentioning that chocolate stimulates the brain and that mine were particularly potent. I then presented Olivia and Garrett with my special recipe, explaining that friends received preferential treatment. Everyone consumed the chocolates and cleared their desks to begin the exam. 15 minutes in, I observed him shifting in his seat, his legs tensing, his forehead glistening with sweat. Olivia blinked rapidly, her jaw tightening as she dropped her pencil and pressed a hand to her abdomen. When both raised their hands, pleading to be excused, the teacher, known for never permitting interruptions during tests, instructed them to remain seated and concentrate. Garrett gripped his desk while Olivia swayed in her seat, fighting back tears. Just as the room began to settle again, a deep, watery gurgle resonated through the silence. Olivia let out a panicked gasp, then bent over, vomiting onto the floor beside her backpack. It emerged in thick streams, spreading across the carpeted floor, with fragments of partially digested chocolate and bile expelled into the air. Garrett made a choked sound and remained seated, but we all detected the foul odor emanating from his trousers. The stench struck like a blow, sharp and acrid, with the unmistakable bite of alcohol and decay. Students began to cover their mouths, gagging, pushing their chairs back in horror. One girl bolted from the room and vomited in the hallway. Another screamed after realizing the source of the odor. Garrett's seat was soiled and dripping with semi-solid brown excrement that mingled with Olivia's vomit, soaking into the carpet and forming a sickening, viscous puddle on the floor. The teacher rushed over, only to recoil immediately upon getting close enough to detect the alcohol on their breath. Suddenly, it was no longer just a medical emergency. It was a disciplinary matter. The school initiated an investigation, bringing both of them to the office after paramedics confirmed the presence of alcohol in their systems. Nothing else was discovered. No one else who consumed my chocolates became ill, and the additional samples I had saved were untainted. Garrett and Olivia were suspended indefinitely, and their parents removed them from school in disgrace. I believed I had triumphed. It certainly felt that way, until a month later, as I walked home and saw them standing a few blocks from my house, clearly awaiting my arrival. My stomach churned, but I continued walking. Running would only imply guilt. As I drew nearer, Garrett stepped forward, his hands raised as if in surrender. He stated they simply wished to speak, expressing remorse for homecoming and everything that followed. Olivia nodded in agreement. Her eyes reddened as if she had been weeping. I did not trust them, but I also wanted to avoid creating a scene in the middle of the street. Mrs. Chan was watering her garden and was definitely observing us, so I paused and listened. They apologized for exploiting me, admitting they had been wrong and self-centered. Garrett, for once, appeared genuinely contrite. Olivia claimed she missed her best friend and desired for things to return to normal. They did not directly mention the chocolate incident, but we all understood the true purpose of this encounter. A truce. I accepted their apology, for what other option did I have? We shared an awkward embrace and went our separate ways. I foolishly thought perhaps things might genuinely improve. The whispers began 3 days later. Initially, subtle murmurs. People claiming I was fixated on Garrett, that I had been stalking him since freshman year. Someone asserted they had seen me following him home and taking photographs. Another person alleged I maintained a shrine to him in my locker. These were outright fabrications, yet recounted with enough specificity that people believed them. My friend Emma inquired if it was true that I had penned love letters to Garrett every day for a year. When I denied it, she seemed unconvinced. Then, my belongings started to vanish. First, minor items. My calculator disappeared from my backpack during lunch. My history notes vanished from my locker, despite my certainty that I had locked it. Then, more significant things. My entire English essay, on which I had spent weeks, simply gone from my folder. When I attempted to explain to Mrs. Martinez that someone had stolen it, she gave me a look suggesting I was fabricating excuses. I had to redo the entire assignment and received a lower grade for submitting it late. My friends began to distance themselves. Sarah suddenly couldn't socialize anymore due to family matters. Jessica was perpetually occupied with other engagements. Even Marcus, whom I had known since elementary school, started avoiding me in the hallways. When I confronted him, he mumbled something about not wanting to get entangled in drama. I asked what drama, and he merely shrugged and walked away. 2 weeks into this nightmare, Olivia did something that altered everything. She uploaded a screenshot to Instagram. It appeared to be a text conversation between us, where I confessed to intentionally poisoning them, where I boasted about it and declared they deserved worse. The messages were fabricated, but they looked authentic. She had even managed to perfectly match the timestamps and read receipts. The caption stated she had been too frightened to come forward previously, but could no longer remain silent. The post quickly went viral within our school. Within hours, everyone shared it, adding their own comments about how they always knew I was crazy. People I had never even spoken to were labeling me psycho in the comments. Someone created a meme featuring my yearbook photo with the words, "Warning, do not accept chocolates," beneath it. It garnered over 300 likes before lunch concluded. I attempted to defend myself, but no one listened. When I asserted the messages were fake, people questioned why Olivia would lie. When I pointed out that the typing style bore no resemblance to my actual texting habits, they claimed I was merely attempting to conceal my tracks. Even teachers began to regard me differently. Mr. Thompson relocated my seat to the front corner of the room, away from everyone else. Mrs. Peterson prohibited me from using the culinary lab without supervision. I was utterly isolated. I ate lunch in the bathroom stall because the cafeteria felt like entering a firing squad. I began leaving class a minute early to avoid the crowded hallways. Even at home, my parents kept asking if everything was all right. But how could I explain that my entire existence was crumbling due to a fabricated screenshot? I understood I needed proof to clear my name, but I had no idea where to begin. Then I recalled something. Garrett was constantly recording content for his social media. He maintained a YouTube channel where he posted vlogs, and he was perpetually filming random moments for TikTok. If he documented so much of his life, perhaps he had recorded something that could assist me. The challenge was gaining access to his phone or computer. I couldn't simply walk up and request to borrow it. But then I remembered his younger brother, Carl, also attended our school, a 9th grader, somewhat nerdy, always being harassed by Garrett's friends. I had witnessed Garrett shoving him into lockers more than once, always dismissing it as brotherly joking. but Carl's expression indicated otherwise. I found Carl seated alone in the library during study hall. He looked up nervously when I sat down, likely anticipating drama. Instead, I inquired about his coding project, which I had overheard him discussing in the computer lab. His entire face brightened. No one ever asked him about his interests. We conversed for 20 minutes about programming and video games. Eventually, I casually mentioned how Garrett was always on his phone and asked if he ever allowed Carl to use it. Carl snorted, stating Garrett would unalive him if he touched his belongings. But then he added something intriguing. Garrett used the same password for everything because he was too indolent to remember different ones, and Carl knew what it was because he had observed Garrett typing it countless times. I did not press the issue at that moment. I spent the following week being amiable to Carl, sitting with him at lunch when Garrett wasn't present, assisting him with his English homework, listening to his complaints about his brother. Finally, when I sensed he trusted me sufficiently, I revealed the truth, how Garrett and Olivia had humiliated me and were now attempting to destroy my life. Carl was not surprised. He said Garrett had been engaging in such behavior for years, usually targeting individuals who couldn't retaliate. Carl provided me with the password, Garrettrules 2005. Of course, it was something so foolish. He also informed me that Garrett's phone automatically backed up to the cloud every night, and the login credentials were saved on their family computer. Carl mentioned his parents were attending a charity dinner on Friday, and Garrett would be at Olivia's house. I would have an opportunity to examine his files. That Friday, I informed my parents I was studying at the library and instead went to Carl's house. He let me in and directed me to the computer in their father's office. My hands trembled as I logged into Garrett's cloud storage. There were thousands of files, photos, videos, messages, everything from the past 3 years. I began with the messages from around the time of homecoming. What I discovered sickened me. There were texts between Garrett and Olivia from weeks before he invited me to the dance. They discussed how pathetic I was, how I trailed them like a lost puppy. Olivia remarked it would be hilarious to witness my expression when I realized Garrett was interested in her instead. They had actually orchestrated the entire scenario, the cupcake, the flowers, everything. Their intention was to publicly humiliate me and then engage intimately at the dance while I observed. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. I found messages from after the chocolate incident. They were meticulously planning their retribution, down to the smallest detail. Olivia had spent hours creating that fake screenshot, even researching how to make it appear authentic. They possessed a comprehensive list of rumors to disseminate and individuals to turn against me. They referred to it as Operation Destroy Sarah, as if they were devising a military campaign. They chuckled about how I would end up eating lunch alone and failing classes because my homework would mysteriously vanish. I took screenshots of everything, every cruel message, every planned assault, every admission of their actions. I also uncovered something else noteworthy. Videos from parties where Garrett and Olivia were consuming alcohol and disparaging other individuals, including several of their own supposed friends. Apparently, Madison wasn't as attractive as she believed, and Jake from the football team was a who could barely read. Even their teacher, Mr. Thompson, was ridiculed for his bald spot and tedious tests. I saved everything to a flash drive Carl had provided. As I was about to log out, I discovered one more item, a video from the night of homecoming. Garrett had recorded himself and Olivia in the car, laughing about how foolish I appeared attempting to dance alone, how I had genuinely believed he wished to attend with me. Olivia mimicked my expression when I witnessed them kissing. Both were convulsing with laughter. The timestamp indicated this occurred while I was in the bathroom, weeping, trying to repair my makeup. I thanked Carl and returned home with sufficient evidence to ruin them. However, I needed to be strategic about how I utilized it. If I simply posted everything online, I would appear to be the deranged stalker they claimed I was. I needed to compel them to expose themselves. I visited Principal Morrison on Monday morning. She looked weary when I entered, likely anticipating another complaint about the rumors. Instead, I calmly informed her I possessed evidence that Garrett and Olivia were spreading falsehoods about me. She sighed, stating that gossip was not truly something the administration could control. That's when I produced my phone and displayed the screenshot of them planning to ruin my reputation. Her expression immediately shifted, but she still hesitated. Screenshots could be fake, she explained, just like the ones Olivia had posted about me. She required more conclusive proof before taking action against star students like Garrett and Olivia. I had anticipated this. I asked if she would be willing to investigate if I could persuade them to confess their actions. She agreed, though she appeared doubtful. I departed her office and located Garrett and Olivia at their customary spot by the senior lockers. They were surrounded by friends, laughing about something on Olivia's phone. When they saw me approaching, Garrett's face darkened. I walked directly up to them, disregarding the way everyone recoiled as if I carried a contagion. I stated we needed to converse privately. Olivia chuckled, asking why they would want to speak with a psycho-stalker. Her friends giggled. I remained composed and stated I possessed something they would be interested in seeing, something from Garrett's cloud storage. His face turned ashen. He seized my arm and pulled me around the corner, Olivia following closely. The hallway was deserted except for us. Garrett demanded to know what I was referring to. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of his own messages about Operation Destroy Sarah. He attempted to snatch my phone, but I stepped back. Olivia frantically whispered that I must have hacked his account, that this was illegal, that I would go to jail. I allowed them to panic for a minute before revealing my terms. They needed to disclose the truth about everything to Principal Morrison, the fake screenshots, the rumors, all of it. That's when they turned hostile. Garrett declared no one would believe me, that I was already the school's laughingstock, and this would only worsen it. Olivia added that they had connections. Her mother was on the school board. Garrett's father donated thousands to the athletic program annually. They could make my life even more miserable than it already was. They would ensure I never gained college admission. They would tell everyone I was mentally unstable. They would even tarnish my family's reputation. What they were unaware of was that I was recording the entire conversation. My phone was in my jacket pocket, with the voice recorder application running. They continued, growing more self-assured as they precisely outlined how they would ruin me if I did not delete everything and leave them alone. Garrett even conceded the chocolate incident was impressive, but asserted I had played my hand too early. Now, it was their turn to win. I allowed them to conclude their threats before taking out my phone and stopping the recording. Their expressions when they comprehended what I had done were exquisite, pure panic. They attempted to claim I had tricked them, that the recording would not be admissible, but we all knew it was over. I returned to Principal Morrison's office with them trailing behind, pleading with me to wait, to reconsider, to be reasonable. I played the recording for Principal Morrison. She listened to the entire conversation, her face growing increasingly grim. When it concluded, she regarded Garrett and Olivia as if seeing them for the first time. She inquired if they had anything to say. Olivia began weeping, genuine tears this time, not the feigned ones she used to manipulate people. Garrett simply stared at the floor. The subsequent investigation was thorough. Principal Morrison interviewed dozens of students. Once people understood the truth was emerging, more students came forward. It turned out Garrett and Olivia had pulled similar stunts previously. A girl named Teresa recounted how they had convinced everyone she was pregnant freshman year simply because she had refused to do Garrett's homework. A guy named Patrick explained how they had planted test answers in his backpack and got him suspended for cheating because he had challenged Garrett for class president. The evidence continued to accumulate. Other students possessed screenshots of cruel messages. Some had recordings of Garrett and Olivia laughing about their schemes. It was as if a dam had burst, and all their victims finally felt secure enough to speak up. Even some members of their own friend group admitted they had only associated with them out of fear of becoming targets themselves. Garrett and Olivia were immediately suspended pending a full disciplinary hearing. Their parents attempted to contest it, but the evidence was irrefutable. The fake screenshots Olivia had posted about me were traced back to her computer. The rumors were tracked to their original sources, all leading back to them. Even their college recommendation letters were withdrawn. Mrs. Peterson stated she could not, in good conscience, recommend students who had exhibited such cruelty. The hearing was brutal for them. They were compelled to sit there as victim after victim explained how they had been targeted, how their lives had been made miserable for trivial reasons, how they had been too frightened to come forward previously. Garrett's parents appeared horrified. His mother actually apologized to me personally, stating she had no idea her son was capable of such behavior. Olivia's mother initially attempted to make excuses, but eventually simply sat in silence. Ultimately, they were expelled, not merely suspended, but completely removed from the school. They had to complete their senior year at the Alternative Learning Center across town, the one attended by students with serious behavioral issues. Their college acceptances were revoked. Garrett lost his football scholarship. Olivia's early admission to her dream school was rescinded. Everything they had strived for vanished overnight. The day after the expulsion was announced, students began speaking to me again. Sarah apologized for abandoning me. Marcus bought me lunch and expressed how terrible he felt for believing the rumors. Even Madison, who had been one of Olivia's closest friends, approached and apologized for everything. It felt peculiar having people be kind to me again, like wearing shoes that once fit, but now felt unfamiliar. Carl became my genuine friend after everything. We still ate lunch together sometimes, discussing video games and coding. He mentioned his house was significantly more peaceful without Garrett around. His parents were in family therapy, attempting to understand how they had overlooked the signs of their older son's true nature. Carl seemed lighter somehow, as if a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. I wish I could say everything reverted to normal, but it didn't, not truly. I still occasionally ate lunch in the bathroom out of habit. I still flinched when people whispered in the hallways. Trust no longer came easily, but at least I could navigate school without feeling as though everyone despised me. My grades recovered once my homework stopped disappearing. Mrs. Peterson allowed me back into the advanced culinary class. I even formed a few new friendships with individuals who considered what I did with the chocolates to be a stroke of brilliant karma. The last time I saw Garrett and Olivia was at graduation. They were not graduating with us, obviously, but they came to observe their former friends walk across the stage. They appeared different, smaller somehow. Garrett had lost weight, and his once perfect hair was disheveled. Olivia wore no makeup and kept her head down. When our eyes met across the football field, they quickly averted their gaze. No anger, no threats, just defeat. I gained admission to my first-choice college with a partial scholarship for culinary arts. My essay, detailing my experience overcoming adversity and confronting bullies, apparently impressed the admissions committee. My parents were proud. My true friends were happy for me. Even Mr. Thompson wrote me a recommendation letter, stating I had demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of unjust treatment. Sometimes I ponder if I went too far with the chocolates, if I should have simply confronted them directly about homecoming instead of plotting revenge. But then I recall that video of them laughing at me in the car, the way they had meticulously planned everything to inflict maximum humiliation, the joy they derived from witnessing my suffering. They didn't merely break my heart that night, they attempted to shatter my spirit. They almost succeeded, too. But I am stronger than they imagined, and smarter too. They assumed I would simply endure whatever they dished out, as that was my previous pattern. They never considered that the quiet girl they had pushed too far might push back, that their flawless scheme might spectacularly backfire, that karma might manifest as chocolate-covered consequences. I feel no remorse for what happened to them. They made their decisions and faced the repercussions. Every rumor they spread, every lie they told, every person they harmed returned to destroy them. I merely expedited the process. And if they learned anything from the experience, perhaps they will reconsider before targeting someone else at their new school, though I somehow doubt it. Individuals like that rarely change. They simply seek new victims. As for me, I learned that remaining silent does not make problems disappear. It only exacerbates them. I learned that bullies rely on their victims being too intimidated or too kind to resist. And I learned that sometimes the most effective retribution isn't getting even, it's gathering evidence. Documentation consistently triumphs over retaliation. Let them ensnare themselves with their own words. All you need to do is hold the rope. I also discovered how to create truly exceptional chocolates. My professor at culinary school remarks that I possess a natural talent for flavor combinations. I now adhere to conventional ingredients, though no more special additions. It turns out regular chocolate is sweet enough on its own, and the only thing I wish to leave people with now is a pleasant taste in their mouth. Well, mostly anyway. There might be a few individuals from high school who should still refrain from accepting candy from me, just to be safe. The subsequent few weeks at school were peculiar. People would randomly approach me and apologize for things they had said or done. Jennifer from my PE class brought me cookies she had baked as an apology. Benjamin, who sat behind me in chemistry, offered to be lab partners. Even teachers treated me differently. Mrs. Peterson inquired if I wished to help organize the end-of-year culinary showcase. Mr. Thompson actually smiled at me in the hallway, but I remained paranoid. Each time someone whispered, I wondered if new rumors were circulating. When my pencil case went missing, I immediately suspected sabotage before locating it under my bed at home. Trust was difficult. I had learned that people could feign friendship while plotting your downfall. How could I discern who was genuine? Then, something unexpected occurred. Teresa, the girl who had been targeted by Garrett and Olivia freshman year, began sitting with me at lunch. She made no grand gesture. She simply appeared with her tray and inquired if the seat was occupied. We did not converse much initially, simply ate in comfortable silence. Eventually, she recounted the full extent of what they had done to her. How the pregnancy rumor had pursued her for 2 years, how her parents had made her take 3 pregnancy tests because they disbelieved her denials, how she had considered transferring schools simply to escape it. More students began joining us. Patrick brought his friend Gabriel, who had been too afraid to report when Garrett had stolen his phone and posted embarrassing photos from it. Sarah joined us after Olivia had convinced everyone she was bulimic because she had declined cake at a party. Joyce came over when she heard we were the table for Garrett and Olivia survivors. By the end of the week, we needed to push 2 tables together. We didn't just discuss what they had done to us. We talked about ordinary things too, movies, homework, college plans. But there was an unspoken understanding among us. We had all endured something similar and emerged from it. It felt good not being alone anymore, not having to explain why I still checked my locker 3 times to ensure it was locked. One day, Deborah from the yearbook committee asked if she could interview me. She was working on a feature about confronting bullying and desired my story. I almost declined. A part of me wished to forget everything and move on. But then I considered all the students who might be experiencing the same thing, who might believe they had no options except to suffer in silence. So I agreed. The interview was more challenging than I anticipated. Discussing homecoming resurrected all those feelings of humiliation. Describing the isolation made me realize how close I had come to surrendering entirely. But Deborah was patient and compassionate. She allowed me to take breaks when I needed them. She did not press for details I was not ready to share. When the article was published, she had written it beautifully, not sensationalized or dramatic, just honest. The response was overwhelming. Students I had never spoken to before thanked me for speaking up. A freshman named Morgan stated they had been dealing with similar bullying, and my story gave them the courage to report it. Even parents reached out. One mother sent a letter stating her daughter had finally disclosed the harassment she had been facing after reading my interview. Of course, not everyone was supportive. Some of Garrett and Olivia's former friends still blamed me. They claimed I had ruined their lives over trivial high school drama, that I should have simply let it go instead of destroying their futures. A few anonymous notes appeared in my locker, labeling me vindictive and worse. But their opinions no longer mattered. I knew the truth, and so did everyone else who counted. Prom season arrived, and I had no intention of attending. The thought of another formal dance made me nauseous. But my lunch table friends persuaded me it would be different this time. Teresa offered to do my makeup. Patrick said his older brother could drive us all in his van. Joyce found a dress for me at a thrift store that was actually more beautiful than my homecoming one. It was emerald green with delicate beading and cost $30 instead of $300. The night of prom, we all prepared at Teresa's house. Her mother made us dinner and took approximately 1,000 photos. No one posed with the wrong person or made anyone feel left out. When we arrived at the venue, we remained together as a group. No couples drama, no third wheel situations, just friends enjoying themselves. When a slow song began, we all stayed on the dance floor in a large circle, swaying and laughing at our ridiculous appearance. I genuinely enjoyed myself, danced until my feet ached, consumed too much cake, and took silly photos in the photo booth with props. It was what homecoming should have been. No drama, no ulterior motives, just teenagers being teenagers. When the night concluded, I realized I had spent 4 hours without once thinking about Garrett and Olivia. As senior year began to wind down, college acceptances arrived, and everyone was making plans. I gained admission to 3 schools but decided on the Culinary Institute 2 states away, far enough to begin anew but close enough to return home when I wished. My parents were saddened by my departure but excited about my future. They had witnessed me endure hell and emerge stronger. My mother remarked she was proud of how I had handled everything. Carl gained early admission to MIT. It turns out when you're not being terrorized by your older brother, you can concentrate on academics. He was anxious about leaving home, but enthusiastic about being surrounded by individuals who shared his interests. We promised to maintain contact. He had become like the younger brother I never had, far better than his actual brother had ever been to him. The senior class trip was to an amusement park. I had not intended to go, but my friends convinced me. We spent the day riding roller coasters and consuming overpriced food. At one point, I observed 2 familiar figures by the funnel cake stand. Garrett and Olivia were there with what appeared to be their alternative school group. They saw me too, but quickly looked away. No confrontation, no drama. We simply coexisted in the same space without interacting. Progress. Graduation day was perfect, sunny, but not excessively hot. My parents arrived early to secure good seats. My father brought his camera with a massive lens that embarrassed me, but I was secretly pleased he cared so much. When they called my name, I walked across that stage with my head held high. No more hiding, no more shrinking into the background. I had earned this moment. The graduation party circuit was intense. Every night for a week, someone was hosting something. I attended a few but skipped those hosted by Garrett and Olivia's former crowd. There was no point in creating awkwardness. At Teresa's party, we all ended up in her pool at midnight, still in our clothes, laughing about how we had survived high school. Her mother emerged, shouting about us getting the carpet wet, but she was smiling. Summer passed swiftly in a blur of work and preparation. I took on extra shifts at the ice cream shop to save money for college. My parents took me dorm shopping and went overboard, purchasing items I would never use. A shower caddy with 20 compartments, a desk lamp with 15 different settings, color-coded hangers that I would undoubtedly mix up within a week. But their enthusiasm was endearing. The night before I departed for college, Carl came over to say goodbye. He brought me a flash drive and stated it contained all the evidence from Garrett's cloud, in case I ever needed it. I told him I didn't want it, that I was finished with all of that. But he insisted, saying it was better to possess it and not require it than the opposite. Smart kid. My parents drove me to campus in our overpacked minivan. My mother cried 3 times before we even arrived. My father kept telling jokes to lighten the mood, but I could see he was emotional too. When we reached my dorm, my roommate was already there. A girl named Emery from Oregon who seemed normal, no red flags, no mean girl energy, just nervous excitement, like me. Saying goodbye to my parents was more difficult than I had anticipated. We had endured so much together over the past year. They had supported me even when the entire school turned against me, never doubted my version of the story, never suggested I should have handled things differently, just loved me through it all. I hugged them extra tightly and promised to call every week. The initial few weeks of college were an adjustment. No one knew my history. I was simply another freshman attempting to figure out where classes were and how to do laundry without turning everything pink. It felt good being anonymous. No whispers when I walked by, no reputation preceding me, just a fresh start. I made friends in my culinary classes quite rapidly. It turns out people who appreciate food are generally quite pleasant. We formed study groups that typically evolved into cooking experiments. My dorm kitchen became our test lab. Reese from my knife skills class taught me how to properly julienne vegetables. Hayden showed me their secret for flawless pie crust. Greer and I competed to see who could create the best chocolate souffle. Occasionally, I would receive messages from people back home, updates on how things were progressing. Teresa gained admission to her dream school for journalism. Patrick was taking a gap year to travel. Joyce was remaining local for community college but was content with her decision. Even Carl checked in regularly, sending memes about college life and updates on his coding projects. I heard through the grapevine that Garrett and Olivia had ended their relationship. Apparently, when you construct a relationship on harming others, it lacks a strong foundation. Garrett was working at his father's company, not attending college at all. Olivia was at some obscure small school no one had heard of. Their downfall was complete. I didn't feel happy about it, precisely, just relieved it was over. My first semester grades were strong. It turns out when you're not concerned about your homework being stolen or rumors being spread, you can actually concentrate on learning. My chocolate unit was my strongest. The professor stated I possessed an intuitive understanding of flavor combinations. I did not mention my previous experience with creative chocolate making. Some stories are best left in the past. Winter break meant returning home for the first time. I was apprehensive about being back in that town, but it was different now. The high school drama felt distant, ancient history. I met up with my lunch table crew, and we went to our old spot at the diner, discussing college and how strange it was to be adults. No one mentioned Garrett or Olivia. They had become irrelevant to our lives. The remainder of freshman year passed quickly. Spring semester brought more challenging classes, but also increased confidence. I entered a student cooking competition and placed third. I made friends outside the culinary program, even went on a few dates with a guy from my statistics class who made me laugh. Nothing serious, but pleasant, normal, with no hidden agendas or cruel schemes. When summer arrived, I secured an internship at a bakery near campus instead of returning home. I spent my days learning from a master pastry chef who had trained in France. She was demanding but fair, pushing me to improve without tearing me down. I learned more that summer than in some of my actual classes. Plus, I got to take home leftover pastries. My roommate adored me for that. Sophomore year commenced, and I felt like a different person than the girl who had been humiliated at homecoming. Stronger, more self-assured, less inclined to tolerate poor treatment. When a girl in my advanced baking class attempted to create drama about group project responsibilities, I immediately shut it down. No passive acceptance, no letting things slide, just clear boundaries and expectations. I decided to minor in business alongside my culinary degree, reasoning that if I wished to open my own establishment someday, I should understand how to manage it. The classes were tedious compared to cooking, but necessary. Plus, it provided me with a contingency plan. Always wise to have options, a lesson learned from placing all my trust in the wrong individuals. Sometimes late at night, I would reflect on that homecoming dance, no longer with sadness, just curiosity about how different my life might have been if Garrett had genuinely wanted to attend with me, if Olivia had truly been my friend. But then I would survey my dorm room, observing my culinary awards and photos with genuine friends, and realize I was precisely where I needed to be. The chocolate incident became an amusing anecdote I would occasionally share at parties. People would gasp and laugh, expressing disbelief that I had done that, but they also understood why. Everyone had a story about someone who had pushed them too far. Mine simply involved a more imaginative response than most. And honestly, it made for an excellent conversation starter. By junior year, I was instructing underclassmen in the teaching kitchen, demonstrating to nervous freshmen how to properly hold knives and avoid burning simple syrup. It felt rewarding to impart knowledge, to be the mentor I had wished I had. When one student approached me about being bullied by her lab partner, I assisted her in documenting everything and reporting it correctly. No chocolate revenge necessary, just proper channels and accountability. I encountered Carl during winter break that year. He was home from MIT, appearing older and more confident, still nerdy, but in a positive way. He had found his community there and was developing some application I did not comprehend, but sounded impressive. He thanked me for being kind to him when everyone else had dismissed him as merely Garrett's peculiar brother, stating it had meant more than I knew. Senior year of college felt surreal. For years had elapsed since that high school nightmare. I was student teaching at a local high school's culinary program, a full circle in a sense. When I observed students dealing with social drama, I endeavored to provide a safe space in the kitchen. Cooking could be therapeutic, measuring and mixing and creating something good from basic ingredients. My thesis project focused on the psychology of comfort food, how certain flavors could evoke memories and emotions. My advisor remarked it was one of the most intriguing approaches she had encountered. I did not mention that my interest stemmed from personal experience with weaponizing food. Academic papers probably should not include revenge plots. Graduation approached once more. This time, I was prepared for it. No anxiety about the future. I had job offers from 3 restaurants and was leaning toward the one that would allow me to develop my own dessert menu. My parents were attending, and this time my mother promised not to cry excessively. My college friends were all dispersing to different cities, but we swore we would stay in touch, and I genuinely believed we would. The week before graduation, I received an unexpected message on social media. It was from AmITheA. My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity prevailed. She was not seeking forgiveness or attempting to reconnect. She simply wished me to know she was in therapy and striving to be a better person. She stated what they had done to me was inexcusable and she was sorry, not expecting a response, just needing to express it. I contemplated it for a long time before replying. I informed her I appreciated the apology, but we would never be friends, that I had moved on and hoped she could too, that high school was a long time ago, and we were different people now, or at least I was. I wished her well and meant it. Then I blocked her. Some doors should remain closed. Graduation day was rainy, but no one seemed to mind. We sat there in our caps and gowns, getting soaked, while speakers discussed our promising futures. When they called my name, I walked across that stage, reflecting on how far I had come, from the girl weeping in the homecoming bathroom to a self-assured woman with a degree and a plan. It had not been the journey I had anticipated, but perhaps that made it more valuable. The celebration dinner with my parents was at an upscale restaurant downtown. They were so proud. They kept recounting my accomplishments to our waiter, which was embarrassing but sweet. Over dessert, my father uttered something that resonated with me. He said, "The strongest steel endures the hottest fire." That what had transpired in high school had forged me into someone unbreakable. Cheesy but true. Moving to begin my new job was both exhilarating and terrifying. New city, new people, new challenges. But I had learned I could handle whatever came my way. The first day in the professional kitchen was intense, fast-paced, and demanding, but when I presented my first dessert special and the head chef approved it, I felt as though I had found my place. 6 months into the job, I received a message from an unrecognized number. It was a reporter from our hometown newspaper. They were preparing a feature on bullying in schools and wished to interview me about my experience, how it had shaped my path. I considered it for a week before agreeing. If my story could help even one student advocate for themselves, it was worth revisiting those memories. The article was published a month later. They had interviewed teachers and administrators too. Changes had been implemented at the school, improved reporting systems, greater accountability, zero tolerance for the kind of systematic harassment Garrett and AmITheA had perfected. It wasn't flawless, but it was progress. The reporter stated my story had been a catalyst for change. That felt more satisfying than any revenge could have. Now I am 25 and managing my own dessert catering business. It turns out all those business classes were worthwhile. I specialize in bespoke chocolates for events. The irony is not lost on me, but these chocolates only bring happiness. No secret ingredients except quality and care. My clients appreciate the personal touch I bring to each order. If only they knew how truly personal chocolate could be. Sometimes, when I'm tempering chocolate late at night in my commercial kitchen, I think about that desperate girl crafting revenge chocolates in her parents' kitchen. I do not judge her. She was doing her utmost with the resources she possessed, fighting back in the only way she knew how. It wasn't the noble path, but it was the path that led me here, and here is quite good. I still maintain contact with my high school survivor group. We have a group chat where we celebrate each other's successes and offer support through challenges. Teresa is an investigative journalist exposing corruption. Patrick manages a nonprofit for at-risk youth. Joyce is a social worker assisting children in navigating difficult situations. We all took our pain and transformed it into purpose. Perhaps that is the true revenge, living well and helping others do the same. Last week, I catered a wedding back in my hometown, a small world indeed. As I was setting up the chocolate fountain, I noticed two familiar faces among the guests, Garrett and Olivia, separately, both appearing uncomfortable when they spotted each other. And then they saw me. The girl they had attempted to destroy was now providing the desserts for their friend's wedding, professional and successful. The expression on their faces was more gratifying than any revenge I could have conceived. I smiled courteously and continued my setup. No drama, no confrontation, just a woman performing her job well, living her life fully. Proof that you cannot keep someone down who refuses to remain there. They avoided the dessert table all night. Probably a wise decision. My chocolates are safe now, but old fears persist, and honestly, that made me smile.